Posterior cranial fossa. The posterior cranial fossa is the deepest of all cranial fossa and lies behind the superior orbit, superior border of petrous temporal bone and the dorsum sella of sphenoid, formed by sphenoid, temporal, parietal, and occipital bones. Lodges, hindbrain, cerebellum, pons, and medulla oblongata. Jugular foramen, hypoglossal canal, foramen magnum, clevius, internal acoustic meatus, internal occipital crest. Features: median area presents clevius, a sloping surface in front of foramen magnum, hypoglossal canal, squamous part of occipital bone, internal occipital crest, bony ridge from internal occipital protuberance to foramen magnum, internal occipital protuberance, group for transverse and sigmoid sinus, cerebella fossa, fossa for occipital lobes. Posterior surface of petrous bone, internal auditory meatus, subarcuate fossa, aqueduct of vestibule, cochlear canaliculus. Internal auditory canal, inferior petrosal sulcus, arcuate eminence, inferior aperture of vestibular aqueduct, sigmoid sulcus, hypoglossal canal, jugular foramen. Structures passing through various foramen: internal auditory meatus, 7th cranial facial nerve, 8th cranial nerve, vestibulocochlear nerve, and nervus intermedius internal auditory vessels. Cribriform plate, optic canal, foramen rotundum, foramen lacerum, foramen ovale, foramen spinosum, carotid canal, internal acoustic meatus, jugular foramen, hypoglossal canal, foramen magnum. Jugular foramen. Anterior inferior petrosal sinus, middle part 9th cranial glossopharyngeal nerve, 10th cranial nerve, vagus nerve, 11th cranial nerve, accessory nerve. Inferior petrosal sinus, glossopharyngeal nerve, vagus nerve, accessory nerve, sigmoid sinus. Posterior sigmoid sinus. Hypoglossal anterior condylar canal, 12th cranial or hypoglossal nerve, meningeal branch of ascending pharyngeal artery. Anatomy: situated in the occipital bone, located between the occipital condyle and jugular tubercle, runs anterolaterally. Hypoglossal canal contains hypoglossal nerve, meningeal branch of ascending pharyngeal artery, emissary vein. Posterior condylar canal, emissary vein connecting the suboccipital venous plexus to sigmoid sinus, meningeal branches of occipital artery. Foramen magnum, 2 compartment, anterior compartment, apical ligament of dense longitudinal band of cruciform ligament of atlas, membrana tectoria, continuation of posterior longitudinal ligament of vertebral bodies. Apical ligament of dense anterior compartment, upper longitudinal band of cruciform ligament, membrana tectoria. Posterior compartment, anterior spinal artery, medulla oblongata, vertebral artery, spinal root of accessory nerve, posterior spinal artery. Posterior compartment, medulla oblongata, posterior spinal arteries, anterior spinal artery, communicating veins between internal vertebral and basilar venous plexus, 2 vertebral arteries, sympathetic plexus, spinal root of 2 accessory nerves.